Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we get to sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players and related music industry experts. If you love playing guitar, stick around. You're in the right place. Hey, this is Craig Garber from Everyone Loves Guitar, and if you're a guitar player who's looking to make some more money, then listen very closely to what I'm about to tell you. If you're a guitar player, or any other kind of musician for that matter, or if you know a musician who wants to make some more money without having to tour or go on the road, or put up with any of the other BS musicians normally have to deal with, then you need to download this new special report about how to make a small fortune by licensing your music. And by licensing music, I mean getting your music inserted into movies, television shows, and commercials. The report is less than 20 pages long, and it was written by Mike Elsner, who I interviewed in episode number 167 of this show. Mike's been doing this for over 14 years, and he's had over 2,000 songs licensed at this point in time. That means he's getting paid to license almost 150 songs per year. Now, keep in mind, most successful career musicians don't get paid for 150 songs in total over a 30 or 40-year career. Yet, Mike's getting paid for this on an annual basis. And the cool thing about this business is that you can run it from your own home studio, and you'll never have to deal with ivory tower record label executives telling you what to play and how to play it, and no shady managers or unethical business people telling you what to do either. So download Mike's free ebook on the 4-step plan to licensing success right now. Just go to everyonelovesguitar.com/Mike. That's everyonelovesguitar.com/Mike, M-I-K-E. Let me know how you like the book. And now let's get on with the show. Hey, everybody. This is Craig Garber from Everyone Loves Guitar. And we've got a really cool guest today. We're going to take a departure from guitar for a day. We're going to talk to Charlie Lowell. Charlie's a keyboard player with Jars of Clay that I am sure you heard of. He's originally from Western New York, Rochester. It's nice and cold up there. Left for college in 1993, Greenville College in Illinois, Southern Illinois, to study music. He grew up listening primarily to progressive rock and new wave. Favorites there are Yes, Tears for Fears, and Crowd House. Funny, when I read this, I don't think I've seen someone write Tears for Fears in a long time. I used to love them, man. They were like, back in the 80s, they were great.
Pretty classic.
Yes, very classic. He played both classically trained and pop piano by ear as he got older. He met a few friends in college, and they all dropped out to form the multi-platinum band Jars of Clay. They won 3 Grammys and 10 Dove Awards. And I believe, just to clarification, the Dove Awards are like Christian Grammys?
That's right.
Okay, great. Over 20 years of touring, they wrote and recorded 12 albums and toured worldwide. Charlie plays anything with keys, including B3 and accordion. He plays well by ear or by chart. He's got his own studio and setup that's accessible every day, which he's in right now. So if you need a sharp keyboard player for tracks, he's definitely your man. Now he's off the road. He's producing songs and sessions for other people, as well as some short ad and short film composition. His production name for his indie pop tracks is called Hollow Hum. That's a very indie name. He also publishes solo piano singles under the name Birds of Norway, which are really beautiful ballads that you can find on Spotify, so I'd encourage you to listen to them. That's Birds of Norway. Man, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
First of all, congratulations on an amazing career that was almost impossible to achieve when you achieved it, but even more far removed from something like that today. I'm really happy you got to do that. And I was curious, though, if you had to look back at the entire experience with Jars of Clay, what would you say the top 3 highlights were for you? Either, in terms of experiences, personal experiences, musical growth, and then on the other side, what were the 3 most frustrating experiences, or 3, biggest bullshit things you had to deal with?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I think top 3, one of them would definitely be the sustained amount of time we got to be together as this core of 4 guys. Started as friends. We liked a lot of the same music. We wrote a few songs in college, literally like an afterthought. I think our class project was to write and record a song for studio recording class. So it was we're trying to get decent grades and have fun while we were doing it. And we ended up, after a year of that, we had 7 or 8 songs. We're hey, this is a thing. We didn't even have a name yet. So fast forward 20 years and it's like, we still are friends, you know, we've had our times, but we've all grown up together and got married and had kids together. And, so it's like this, real camaraderie there where we've got each other's back. And I think doing that over that extended amount of time, it allows you to do things. It allows you to explore musically and go some new places that you couldn't, you know, a typical like 5 to 8 year band life just doesn't give that room to grow and explore. So I feel like we got to do that. And by the end of it, it took us that long, but by the end of it, we really were making all of our decisions and just empowered to like tour where we wanted to tour, pull out the bands we wanted to have open for us, you know, work with the kind of producers we wanted to work with. And it really was like no one was calling the shots or advising for us. But that was in the last like 5 years maybe that we really found that voice, I guess.
So it's almost like you got to do on a commercial level what you originally set out to do with no governors. You know, you made, like you said, you called all the shots and you had to work 15 years to get through all the record company executives and producers and this ones and that ones who, you know, advised, quote unquote, you as what to do or what they wanted to do or where their budget would be spent. And then you got to do it in the last 5-6 years on your own.
Yeah. And some of that, I should say, was just us growing up. Because when we met, we dropped out of school, we were 20, you know, and like never took a business class. And then you jump on the road and you're doing well essentially out of the box, and like everything's kind of taken care of for you. So I think, you know, some of what I'm describing is probably because it took us 10, 12, 14 years to like figure out like the business a little bit more and be empowered to do those things the way we wanted to, instead of just sort of like plug and play, like, man, this is what people do. This is what bands do. And we just kind of did it, you know. I'm not saying like we didn't make records that were honest or that we didn't feel creative freedom, but I think more of like the system in place around us. Yeah.
No, I totally get that. That's a pretty interesting, and it is reality. And yeah, I think you'd be remiss not to take that into consideration, the maturity factor.
Yeah.
You know. Now, so were you guys the typical? I assume you were not the typical, you know, wild boys going crazy, or is that a foolish assumption?
No, we were pretty mellow. I mean, we did meet at Christian school, and you know, the first record was written. You know, it's interesting because it was sort of like we all left home, we met each other in this new place where I think especially kids that grew up in church and youth group, like you are in a sort of bubble, and then you find yourself like 3 states away with all these different interesting people around you. And that still was a sort of a Christian context there at school, but it's so natural to like kind of hold stuff up to a bigger world and go like, oh, what was that? Or like, do I still resonate with that? And you sort of do this personal, almost like a personal accounting for like what you bring to college with you. And some of it, maybe you just leave at home, you know, or you move on from it at school. So that first debut record was us sort of examining some things and asking some questions about our faith and feeling this freedom to be real honest and in the moment. And at that point, there was no audience and there was no band name and there was no expectation. So, you know, that's the beauty of the first record is you can say whatever you want or not, and there's no one's listening yet. You know, then it comes out and it's like, oh, we have to talk about this to like radio stations and audiences and sort of either back it up or just be like, hey, this is our music. If you don't like it, you know, it's not for you.
Which way did you go, or both?
You mean with how we described it?
Well, I mean, like, I think that's, you know, I think that you either do have to, I think people, one of the things I think people look for from celebrities, and, you know, once your music hits, you're now a celebrity, like it or not, doesn't mean you change or anything, as you know. But now there's this, I think, in pop culture, you're sort of like on a pulpit a bit. People are looking to you for answers. When you're the same, maybe dumb 20-year-old kids that are looking to you for answers, like, how the hell do well, I don't know any more than you do, and you're asking me this shit. But nevertheless, you have to answer. Did you guys try to give those answers, or did you just say, look, this is our deal, and if you don't like it, that's totally cool?
Yeah, I mean, I think we erred to that side for sure. We, like, when the record blew up, we knew people related to it, so that's immediately like a pat on the back, like, hey, you did something right.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I would say, like, in that world, like in the Christian radio world, is now really narrow. Like it was a little more broad when we were getting started, but over the years it's gotten super narrow. And if you don't kind of hit these 4 things right on the head, then you're not going to get played.
Yeah, you're not in that bucket. We got to find another bucket for you, or you got to find one for yourself. I know, it's really weird.
It's a tough one. So I think we felt like part of our role and our DNA in Jars is to, like, push at the sides a little bit and maybe annoy some people and maybe redefine a little bit what you say. Like I can be a Christian on the radio and I can talk about, like, doubt, or, like, I don't know, I don't have all the answers, so I'm not going to pretend to, like, tell you if that's right or wrong or what I think about that, So I think we found, and together as 4 guys that sort of grew up together, we found the space to be able to find enough expression and voice to not just be cynical and angry about it,
Well, it's great that you had each other too, man. And I was really happy you just said that you're all friends, because that's pretty difficult. Forget about band stuff. Just to retain a friendship over 20 years is, especially during that period of time when you change so dramatically, that's pretty rare, I think.
It is. I think so too.
So what's the status of the band now? And like, what prompted you guys to stop recording back in 2013?
Yeah. So we basically hit 20 years. Started in 93. We were coming up in 20 years, and we wanted to do something for the fans. So we did this big in-town thing in Nashville. We brought, like, I don't know how many fans showed up. We did, like, a VIP weekend experience. We brought them in our studio. We played like B-sides and, off-record stuff that they wanted to hear. We blew out our merch for like $5 a t-shirt, because we had all this stuff from over the years. And then
clear out time.
Yeah. And then we knew, like, we were stretching our families. Like, at that point, I have twin boys and they were like 13, and I was still just in and out a lot. We weren't touring as much, but it was still a lot of work on the families. And meanwhile, the industry was just pinching, and we wanted to be in clubs with some cool indie bands, and it just meant we weren't bringing home much money, and so we had to leave more often to make just as much money, and the cost on our families versus what we were living on just became not worth it anymore. And we weren't willing to, like, at that point, we weren't willing to say, well, let's just do a big, like, let's hop on a big touring Christian festival thing and play big churches and do this sort of production. It was kind of like, we've done that a bunch. We kind of just want to go home and figure out what's next.
Good.
And it was like, it was real open-ended. Like, maybe we'll do more music. Like, we're not saying no to music. Really, we're just saying no to touring. That, like, hamster wheel that we couldn't seem to hop off of for 2 decades. We've just all hit a place where we were ready. And the families could just, like, exhale and take some time and figure out, maybe 1 or 2 of us kind of had a blueprint of what we were going to do after that, but I certainly didn't. And so it was for me, I'll just say that season of knowing we were coming off the road was one of huge relief, because the amount of touring we did was just really hard on my marriage. Thankfully, we made it through so far, but it was like a huge relief, and then also like this inner panic of like, this is all I've known since I was 20 and 40, and so what is next for me? And I had no idea. I spent like every person I met like, well, what do you do? And then I would like in my mind, like mentally try that on. Like maybe I could do that. I mean, it was ridiculous for like
No, but
a couple
that's
months,
to make total sense because
like
your identity is forged especially for guys, I think in general. And I don't want to catch this as that's not a sexist comment because I'm a guy. I don't know what it's like to be a woman, so that's why I'm saying it.
Yep.
But I think for guys, I know your identity is really closely associated with what you do for a living.
True.
And like now you're like, I don't know what I do for a living in a sense, but in a good way. But it's hard to wear that answer in a good way.
Yeah.
With yourself, not with anybody else. Screw other people, but I mean, just with yourself, it's it's hard to have a response, an ambiguous response or an uncertain response, man.
Yeah. And for a while I had this funny thing where I was like I actually went and got like an office job at a marketing firm for about a year and a half because the business was in such a weird spot. I was like, I'm not going to I just dragged my family through this. I'm not going to throw them into a different college.
Entrepreneurial, yeah.
So I was like, I'm just going to get a job and have like some sort of baseline monthly number that we can work off of and we'll figure it out from there. But I kept feeling like, oh yeah, I did this thing for 20 years with these 3 other guys and we sort of learned this dance where like whatever was required at that moment, the person that had the greater skill set for that job would sort of step forward, and take on the role. And so all of a sudden I don't have those guys to like help make me look good and vice versa. I have to be all like, now I'm just one dude, not 4 guys making up one unit.
Well, even worse, you don't have the project either.
Right.
It's like, you forget about guys. What's the project that you're going to work on? That's
Yeah. So that took a while. It just was like, part of me, in hindsight, part of me was like, man, this would have been so much easier like when I was 32 instead of 40. So like, man, I did this thing for 10 years. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, what's next? Instead of like, well, now my kids are like going to college next year. So like, like figure out so yeah, that was, I don't know, maybe there was just the idea of reinventing and providing was pretty staggering.
Yeah.
At that age.
I read this book, and I don't know if this would help passing it along, but I read this book one time by a woman, which you find is interesting. She was in the Mormon church, and she left them. The book is called Finding Your Own North Star.
Huh.
And it was really good. And I read it during a time when I was like kind of going through something like that and just feeling like I had to start over. And, you have all these things going through your mind and worries. And the worst thing to do is let that mind go because it's like, you never get sleep if you do that.
Friend.
Yeah, your mind is not your friend. And but I read something in this book. It was really comforting. And she said, and I can't think of her name. I really apologize. Martha Beck is her name, I believe. And she said in the book, she said, look, when you're going through something like this, whether it's self-initiated or the result of a crisis that's left you in this situation, she said, really the best thing to do is, don't start thinking about retirement planning. Don't start thinking about anything long-term because you're not equipped for that right now. It would be like, a child, thinking about driving.
Yeah.
It's just not, it doesn't make sense. And she said, just take things day by day.
Yeah.
And and I'm probably like you, type A, and I like to sort of have a goal and work or multiple goals and try to work for those things, towards those things. And I when I read that, it really took a big weight off my shoulders. I was like, you know what? Thank you. I'm not going to think about this shit that I need to deal with, that I'm thinking I need to deal with. Let me just take things today.
Yeah.
And it really gave me a lot of comfort.
Yeah. It's good.
Yeah, it was good because, it's like as you get older too, you don't want stress, man. You're just like sick of it. And you realize how responsible that you could be for it.
Yeah. And it doesn't, like, the same thing, like, your mind isn't always your friend. Like, the stress doesn't help you do a better job that day.
Right.
Or get closer to where you want to be. You know,
Right.
it's like it's like the enemy voice.
Oh, totally. It's like, and it takes you down all these multiple rabbit holes, none of which are any good for you at all.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I feel you on that, man. You've been doing now some producing and recording, which I guess is something that you're working on new since 2013. Same thing with that. Do you have any long range plans with that, or are you just kind of taking it one day at a time with that stuff?
Well, I certainly started as, one song at a time. And I put out maybe, 6 sort of indie pop songs in the last 2 years or so. And I have a handful more just kind of sitting in the queue. But I will say, the more I sort of explore, like, some days I just come in and I'm alone in my studio and it's like, what do I want to do? What comes naturally to me? That's like a place where I start if things are slow or I'm waiting on someone. And so that's brought me to some more like instrumental composing and some of the solo reflective piano stuff. So it's like trying to be strategic with that, finding a place where that has a home, finding ways that I can potentially monetize those avenues. I've sort of waited for a licensing opportunity or a licensing home. The past 2 years, I knocked on a handful of doors and I got like, hey man, your stuff sounds good, but we're just so full right now. That's where everyone's hanging out, waiting for opportunity. And so I was like, all right, I'm not going to be desperate. I'm just going to like wait for someone that sees me and hears me and is like, hey, let's work together, And so I finally found that piece in the last 2 months. So it's just like, it's slow and steady, and I can't get too far ahead of myself. But just when I kind of think like there's not much else to do, like my phone rings or like someone introduces me to someone and they're like, oh my gosh, I heard you through this and we should do this together. And so it's in Nashville's such a town that way. There's so much collaborating. There's so much networking, but in a real like supportive kind of context.
Very much so. And there's so many people too, man. It's like which is the great thing, because even if you could run into a guy and it's not a fit for him, but he could say, but you know what? My buddy my buddy knows a guy that's a perfect fit for you, which is really cool.
Totally.
Yeah. Well, that's great, man. You're originally from Rochester.
Mm-hmm.
What was your childhood like?
It was pretty smooth, I want to say. Like I never moved. My dad was a children's dentist, so like he had a really consistent job, not a ton of money, but like we were comfortable. My mom was a nurse until she had kids, and then she was home. So like she was like the bedrock, she was always there and looking out for us. I was the middle of 3 boys.
Oh, wow, cool.
So my older brother and I were super music heads. Rochester's a real classic rock town. Blue collar kind of like Bad Company and ELO and just kind of like the basics. So most of that stuff I liked. And I think probably, as I look ahead from there, probably prepared me to be like, so Jars was basically a guitar-based band. We had 2 guitar players, and then I was keyboard player that kind of had to try and find his space, mostly behind this guitar-led band. So I think some of that classic rock stuff kind of set me up to look for those opportunities.
Yeah, but I hope you're not minimizing your role there, because as an indie band, your role was pretty out front, man. I wouldn't look, when I think about you're listening to your role out, like that's not what comes to my mind. You're an indie band the keyboards are pretty defining of the sound, actually, to me.
Yeah. Thanks. I mean, I guess my my philosophy with keyboards too is more of like the Ben Montench, like those 3 notes in that one part of that song. I'll sit and wait for my part, and then the right 3 notes versus like I'm not a super busy fingers forward kind of player.
You're not like a guitarist.
So, I would rather sit and like wait for that little magic riff or counter melody that comes back at the end of the song, and you're like, oh, that's from the bridge. He totally wove that over the different chords. That's my sweet spot,
Yeah.
And so maybe that's what I'm saying, like in a band with 2 guitar players, like that was kind of my role, was to find those.
Yeah, the fills.
Yeah.
What made you pick? This is what I was curious. Greenville College in Illinois. I mean, there's some really good music schools in the Northeast, man.
Right? Yeah.
That was so weird. How random, like how this all happens, isn't it?
And none of us were from around there. Like our singer was in Florida, and I guess Steven, our other guitar player, was in Central Illinois. He was the closest, but it was still seemingly random for him. So the reason we all even knew about it was because, to some degree, they put out these ads in some faith-based magazines at that, like in the 90s, when like Michael W. Smith and Amy Grant were doing crossover stuff. Greenville had this cool modern ad that had a recording studio, and they were like, we have a school program now, a major for like modern musicians that want to do studio recording in a faith-based education program.
Okay.
So that's kind of the like ticker tape that sort of led us there. I went and visited and met this amazing guy that I like still look up to, musician kid that I watched him like playing in bands and doing cool stuff that weekend when I was there. And I was like, it was, I had been to a Catholic high school, all boys high school in New York. And
you had been?
Yeah.
Okay.
I looked at some conservatories around New York, and they felt big. I mean, I suppose I probably was looking for a smaller school just because I'm a little more withdrawn and introverted. So I think I felt like I can find my space and grow wings easier in a smaller context. So Greenville appealed to me in that way. And the music program wasn't huge. Like we were in the studio almost every week, or at least a couple weeks a month, because people weren't like clamoring to get there. So we just kind of were like, sweet. So at the end of the year, we had like 8 songs tracked out and mixed.
That's amazing.
So, for whatever reason, we landed there, found each other, and just got to it. And it's like in the middle of cornfields, so there's nothing to do. Like you could drive into St. Louis if you're super bored, but it's not like there were, we didn't party and there weren't a lot of distractions. Yeah. So we got a lot done at the studio. We pull some all-nighters and stay there for spring break and just like book the studio out and do songs.
That's so cool. So you guys, I'm always just amazed by I have this thing, you can't connect the dots moving forward, but it's so amazing sometimes how these things fall into place, the likelihood. And, you really got to give kudos to, the universe or some, whoever your being of choice is, that all this stuff sort of works out sometimes, because it's like statistically almost 0 chance of it happening, It's so cool. Yeah. Did your folks freak out when you told them after a year, hey, we're dropping out of school to play music full time?
Yeah. So I've tried to remember back to that phone call, because like we entered a competition in Nashville and we won it, which everyone was like, what? Like we just wanted feedback, and we won it because I think just compared to everything else that was going on in that world, our sound was really different at that time. And so people were super excited. We went back to school. I think that was like Easter week or spring break. We went back to school to finish up the semester, and like major labels were calling our dorm floor.
Holy smokes.
So like figure out what was up and if they could talk and when we were coming back to town and let's meet and we'll, talk to you about our label. And so we were kind of like, we're here studying music at school. We can either get our paper degrees for music or let's just go down for the summer, check it out, meet some people. We weren't even really playing shows then. We were like a studio band more than a live. But so our parents were, it was all framed in like, we're just gonna go down and like meet some people and we can come back in the fall if nothing's going on. Well, we just stayed down and, we were signing a deal by Christmas, I think. So at least none of our parents were like, no, you're not doing that. You're staying in school. They all were kind of like, all right, I'm paying a lot of money for you to be in music school. So go see where this takes you, and they were all like huge fan. I mean, my parents' license plate until a couple of years ago was Jar's mom. With the stickers around it. So people
that's awesome.
And be like,
that is so cool.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, they were always super supportive of music, and my dad at some point was like, Charlie's not going to be the dentist and inherit my business, and he was so supportive, and so the buck is in my court now to do that with my kids that are like starting to look at schools and loving music. I'm like, okay, what am I going to do now with that?
What did any of your brothers get into music also? Because you said one of your brothers, I think your older brother, you said was in music. Yeah, they all love music, both of them, but and they dabble a little, but never professionally. Like they're like fans, collectors, connoisseurs, but not outside of like jamming in their house, And you have twin boys, right?
I do.
Are any of them into music?
Yeah, they're getting in. I mean, they're juniors right now, but like every month they're like doing more and more. So I'm like, I knew they loved music, but like one of them's programming like tracks in Logic and doing cool like electronic stuff. And the other one
he probably shows you stuff, I would imagine.
He has, yeah.
That's the way it works.
Man, you show me that filter. And then the other one just sits at the piano and just doesn't know what he's playing. So we're working on teaching him the number system so he can communicate about what he's playing.
Sure.
But he just has a really good ear. He'll hear something on the radio or he'll make up something on the spot. And they definitely both have really different raw talents with no training.
That's great.
They grew up around it. So it's that osmosis kind of thing.
Is your wife musically inclined at all?
She is, yeah. I mean, she's never done it professionally, but grew up singing and playing piano and all that. So yeah, I mean, there's always music on in our house.
That's great, man. How'd you get into playing keys in the first place? If nobody was really music in your parents were.
Yeah. I mean, my parents like sung in choir, and my mom she does play piano.
Okay.
So apparently, when I was in first grade, I begged for lessons. I don't remember it, but they had to find a teacher that would teach that young, and I don't know how I stuck with it. I mean, I still have dreams like now.
Nightmares or dreams?
Well, I'm showing up for my lesson, and I didn't practice for weeks, and I'm like, feel horrible. Wake up like embarrassed and like, I'm a failure. That's the one dream I have. Like,
that's funny.
But yeah, somehow like I skateboarded a lot. That was kind of my sport. Teenage years, and I was a little bit of a skate punk. Had a garage band with some buddies, but somehow through that all, I sat down and did my canon exercises and my Bach fugues and my sonatinas, and and you do hear that in the Birds of Norway stuff now. Like, I didn't use it as much with jars. In fact, I think challenge for me, like being in a band and writing, was kind of to forget some of that training, because I felt like it locked me in and I wasn't thinking like outside of those boxes. But now I feel like it's kind of useful again as I compose more and as I sit at the piano and work on new stuff. I feel like I'm sort of borrowing some of my classical training again.
That's great, man. When you guys first started playing professionally, you were green as anything in young kids. What was like? Were there anything surprises about the industry business wise that you guys are like, holy crap, this is interesting. I didn't realize this.
Yeah, let me think.
And maybe good or bad. I'm not necessarily saying, unpleasant surprises.
Sure. I think part of what I remember being hard, and this is a result of being shot out of a cannon with our first or second single, but there was this pressure and expectation that you say yes to every opportunity,
right?
Which is cool when you're like a college dropout and don't have a wife or girlfriend and you get along with your bandmates, getting paid to play. So it was like, yes to nearly everything. And then like at some point you kind of wake up and you're like, I feel like hell, I'm exhausted. I don't care about what I'm doing right now. I'm like, okay, so there's a cost to saying yes that much. So, and does anyone else agree with me? And if so, like, how do we, some of that was our first manager, I think, that was just like, I got something that's working here, and just crack the whip, and get the guy on the road, try and keep them out of relationships so they're not wanting to be home more.
You had like Brian Epstein as your first manager for the Beatles.
And that didn't last that long because we did start dating, and a couple of us got married fairly quickly, like 2 years into the band. And that, stuff started to change. It had to. So I would say, yeah, that pressure to like, it was almost as if we bought into this myth that like every opportunity that came along was going to be the last one.
Yeah.
And so, I just feel like we didn't have a like mentor or whatever the word, guru, kind of going, hey guys, man, like, don't kill yourselves over this. Like people are still going to like you 3 months from now. Take a month off and like just get away from it and like go camping or,
whatever it is you do. Yeah.
Yeah. Like set this down for a little bit and come back to it. You'll enjoy it more again, and the people will still be there, So I feel like that was, we were missing that voice early on. We got it later, but.
Was it weird, because you guys had success early on, was it weird financially having like adult money at such a young age? Not that you weren't an adult, but you know what I mean? You're in early 20s, you're not like an adult really, you're just like a kid.
Yeah.
Was it weird? Like, and then all of a sudden, like, you're booking rooms probably at like, you're booking the penthouse at or that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it was. And I think, we drew salaries, so it wasn't like I couldn't just access whatever I wanted. But then we would do nice bonuses at the end of the year, it was the 90s. It was like the decade of the music biz.
Yeah, sure.
But I think, again, like with our youth and our lack of business savvy, I think there were tours where our crew was making way more money than we were.
Totally.
And like, it's just kind of how it went. And when you're touring that much and you're doing a show rate, that quickly like eclipses our salaries. Are pretty conservative, So I think, like I went out and bought a $9,000 baby grand piano, like after Flood was out for a year. So I was like, this is amazing. We got a bonus, and I was like, I want a real piano in my apartment. I was still in an apartment at that point. So yeah, there were moments of that, but I think we saw it more in the like, well, we can take out a bigger production this tour. We can do, more backline. We can bring guitar tech finally. Like that was like the luxury.
Yeah, sure. So you reinvested a lot of money into business.
Yeah, we spent a lot of money on the road, like kind of keeping up with making sure the show sounded and looked great.
Which is a lesson. I want to like point that out, because a lot of people listening to this, they somehow, I think when you're not familiar with this, process. They somehow think, oh, the record companies pay for it. No, the record companies advance the money for it. They don't pay for anything. You pay dearly for it. You know,
I remember, sorry, go
No,
ahead.
go ahead.
I remember because back then it was like music videos were huge.
Yeah.
And we had, we weren't just, at this point, we weren't just playing in the Christian market. Flood had some mainstream crossover success on like alternative rock radio.
Very much. Had a lot of success.
Yeah. So we were like, okay, well, this is cool. We weren't expecting any of this, but now we're sort of like, it's tough because some of the church folks didn't understand, like, why would you go play a club? Why would you go talk to 99X in Atlanta? Like,
wow.
Like we thought you were our band, kind of this like territorial thing. It's weird.
No, but what I don't understand is what were you doing wrong?
Well, that's why it's weird.
And especially, I don't know, like I'm not a religious person, probably for this reason, is because like, isn't the whole spirit of church and community like inclusive and like sharing?
Yeah,
so
that's
the
why
whole concept is like,
yeah,
sharing is cool as long as we don't have to do it.
Right, yeah. Not that band. That's my band.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That had to make things a drag, I would imagine.
Yeah, it was really tough at times. And then we also really felt like alive and at home, like playing in clubs and like.
Well, you're 20-something years old or 30 years old. Why the hell wouldn't you?
Yeah. But so we were trying to keep up with like the music video thing, and like we had one, I think MTV played Flood a couple times, the video. So we had to follow it up on our second record. So we went out to LA and did this video for a song called Crazy Times. And I think, if I remember correctly, we spent around $700,000 on this video.
Oh, wow.
Which is marketing budget, and you recoup it. So like whatever that album sells.
Yeah, but it's in advance. It's not like you got to earn it. You recoup it, but I mean, it's not like free money.
You're going to make your money later because you're recouping it first.
Yeah, it's not free.
I think about that now, and I'm like, video's king and content's king now, but like your buddy can shoot you a pretty cool video for like $7,000.
Yeah.
And shelling out, like we could have paid for our houses with $750,000.
All of you, yeah.
All of our houses back then. So I don't know. There's times when it's like, well, man, that was a crazy season in the music business, and I don't think that video ever got played on MTV after all that.
Yeah, but Flood didn't get played a lot on MTV.
A little bit, yeah. I think, I think a little bit, and I think some people got a little skittish because they thought we had a real heavy evangelical agenda, which we never did. That's part of the Jars DNA was like, I'm not trying to like tell you what to do or what to believe. Like we never went into a scenario where we were like, we're going to preach to these people and tell them they're like, be judgy. Like, and then, that's probably my biggest friction with where we've come from. And that's sort of a big side of the church that doesn't make a lot of sense. You know?
I totally get it.
So I think people expected us to have that sort of thing around us, and we just never did.
So it was almost like, damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you stick, it sounds like, if you, you wanted to be gracious to, the church or whoever was your fan base, obviously. But yeah, but not to the exclusion of the rest of your life and your other, that's a tough situation to be in. And it's unfair for to put young kids in that situation, because it's almost like, it's almost like what goes on social media nowadays. It's like, well, are you on our side or not? What do you mean side? We're just freaking 20-year-old guys playing music. Like, I could understand that must have been, that had to be really tough. I don't envy you to have to go through this. See, this is all the stuff that I think people don't realize is going on in any business, and this is just the the bumps in the road for your business in this area. But everybody, one of the things I learned early on after I started talking to a bunch of guitar players is you're running a small business and you have the same nonsense in different flavors and at different times as any other small business, and this is exactly something like that. Like, it's not even something that should come on your radar screen, let alone have to drag you down like that. It's like you just want to play music. That's why you started. And it's like that you happen to all be met at that kind of school.
Yeah.
You might have met at, RIT,
right.
Or Rochester, right? I mean, wow. So if you had to go back, Charlie, and give advice to your younger self, what would you have told yourself?
Man, definitely say no more, or feel free to say no. It's not all hinging on every decision. And then just kind of enjoy the ride a little bit more, which is so easy to say in hindsight,
Yeah, I think that's a common thing. Just as we all get older, it's like you realize, I should have had more fun.
Yeah. Day by day mantra. Yeah, let's have some fun today. Let's put on a great show. Let's meet some cool people.
Yeah,
and let's wake up tomorrow sweet. What does tomorrow bring?
Right.
When we get there.
Much less stress that way.
Yeah,
for sure. And I don't know. You know what I learned from having kids is don't have expectations either. That has helped me out a lot because
you're not really in control.
Yeah, right. So what right do I even have in the first place to have an expectation of anything? And to some extent, even myself in certain ways, I've had to become more okay with letting my own life unfold a little bit instead of, well, this is supposed to happen, that's supposed to happen. Really? Where's the manual that I'm getting this information from? I thought about that one day. I'm like, what am I doing? This is way too, I'm complicating shit,
Yeah. Yeah.
Talk about music for a minute as far as early influences. Do you remember the first CD you ever purchased?
Kind of. I remember, I think I probably bought some music, but Crowded House is the one I remember hearing Don't Dream It's Over on the radio and going, that's my band. The stuff my brother played for me, I loved it. I still love a lot of it. But man, when I heard Neil Finn and that B3 solo and that song and those melodies and textures, I was just I went out and bought the cassette. I think it was the cassette. And it was I was home,
Cool.
And then I was a little more finding my own music after that. I was a little less just pulling down what my brother was buying. And that, that did take me a little more Tears for Fears, the Smiths, The Cure, the kind of British Europop stuff. But a lot of bands still, a lot of bands with guitar players in them. Depeche Mode, I definitely spent a lot of time with them. But man, there's just something about a band, I don't, I'm trying to think. I listen to stuff that's all synths and keyboards, but it's probably not at the end of the day my favorite thing.
So you like stuff with a bit of an edge. You like the Smiths, the Cure. Those are bands with an edge, man. I like those bands myself.
Yeah, I do. I don't I always felt I should at least know AC/DC's catalog. I know the runaway hits.
Yeah.
The Basketball Arena, but and I don't think it was they don't have a keyboard player, I'm not going to listen to them. Because I listened to plenty of guitar bands. And, so there's some stuff that I just was I don't like that. I don't care to spend my time listening to that. But in general, I think pretty open palette musically. Hopefully still, as I listen to stuff with my kids, I'm I can really appreciate that.
Yeah,
or what that's doing. The triplet against the straight kick, that's super interesting. I wish I would have thought of that.
Do they listen? What kind of music do they listen to?
Well, for a while it was hip hop because they were teenagers, but now it's like, I mean, in some ways I listen to a lot of stuff they listen to now. We all like that band Odessa. They're kind of like a really musical electronic band. They love this duo called Lewis the Child. I think they're from Atlanta.
Did you guys go to shows together?
Yeah, we have.
Yeah.
It's fun.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
I do that with my kids. It's a lot of fun, man.
They love the like rave, like EDM, visual assaults, like that stuff, which I like that in college too. So.
Oh, cool. So you can go back with them and realize how old you've gotten.
I feel like the oldest guy in the room. Where are my earplugs?
Well, it's funny, man, because I go to like a lot of classic rock shows, and I'll tell my son, because I'm like the youngest, a young age of the baby boomers. It ended in '63. I was born end of '63, and I told my son, I said, Nick, I'm going to be the youngest guy here besides you, believe it or not. And you see there, and it's really amazing. It's like, you know, average age has got to be, you know, close to 70. It's really funny, which is good. You know, it's just, you know, and it's really more of a head trip for me. Like, shit, these are my peers.
Yeah, and the artists are still playing. That's
yeah, it's very cool. Yeah,
they're probably a little older than you. You know,
you know who Dave Mason is?
Yeah,
from Traffic. Yeah, my son and I went to see him. I don't know, like 5 years ago. He was down here, played a show, and then I interviewed him like 3 or 4 weeks ago. That was the first and like only interview I've done where it was really weird. Because like I had his album. I said, Dave, does this look? You know, I had his album. I bought it down in the Village. I grew up in New York City, and I bought it at the used record shop, Alone Together. And I was like, and I said to him, I said, this is so weird because like if someone would have told me when I bought this at Bleecker Bob's or wherever it was that, you know, we'll be on an interview in, you know, 40 years. How do you put that together? It was just really weird. Very weird. So what would be your top 3, your Desert Island discs in no particular order and knowing that they could change tomorrow?
Yeah. There'd definitely be some Peter Gabriel in there. Oh. I mean, honestly, like, probably Peter Gabriel.
He's an intense guy, man.
Yeah. I mean, that's so record.
I'd like to get him on the show. He's a real deep guy.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Probably Crowded House, and then like a James Taylor or Simon and Garfunkel.
I love Simon and Garfunkel, man. Some of the best writers.
Drops me to my knees.
I interviewed Jim Oblon, who plays guitar with Paul Simon now, and that's got to be really cool.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the catalog, you know?
Yeah.
All right, so what do you like most about yourself after you've been through all this?
Great question. I like that I really like collaborating, and I like myself when I'm collaborating. I feel like I work best one-on-one. Like I'm intimidated by the idea of like producing a band where there's like 6 people in the room and we've got 18 things going on. I'm like, give me like one person that's focused. I'm good at filtering ideas. I'm good at pushing back. Good at starting ideas. And I feel like that just feels like when I'm the most at home and I work the best. So I like that. I like that I'm a good collaborator, I feel like.
Are you a better starter or finisher?
I feel like I like starting things, maybe because it's just like that I'm not coming in with nothing.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it's a little more like a little security thing. But I do like finishing. I mean, it's
well, usually you're not both. Like usually you're not both. Like you're a good. Like I'm a better starter than I am finisher. I mean, as I've gotten older, I've been like, okay, I got to get shit done. It's fine, but I prefer, you know. I like all the ideas and then like honing things down in projects.
Yeah.
Versus, you know, execution. I find a little more boring.
Yeah, that's probably me too. I mean, I think I get a little excited because it's still a little new, and I feel like, oh man, I'm going to try this new thing in Logic today because I just saw someone do it. And so I get like, I've been finding some energy there. But yeah, starting's exciting. I mean, there's nothing like having a blank canvas, coming in and getting your head together with someone and leaving with like this thing that you find really stirring and beautiful. That's kind of the best of like the music to me.
Flip side, if you could change something about yourself, one thing, what would it be?
I mean, I feel like I'm just learning to be a little savvy and strategic with my work and my business. And I have to like work at that. And, sometimes my wife has to remind me, like, you don't have to do favors. Like you got a lot to bring people. And so I think, I wish I were a little more inherent when I saw opportunities. Just a quicker, like, man, here's how I can make that work for me. Win-win. Like,
Yeah. I think it's tough to change your vantage point too sometimes. Like if you come at something as a musician for all these years and you're going to, and you like that position, obviously, and you're good at it, and now you got to switch to producer or whatever. It's not so easy.
Yep.
It's not so easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I totally get that. Happiest moment or time of your life? Man, I told you I lived in the same house for my childhood until I left for college, but through all those years, we had a summer house on the Finger Lakes. So, every June through, early September, we would be on this Canandaigua Lake, this beautiful, freshwater lake, and we had boats. So I was like skiing. We would have a lot of company. So I would kind of like drive the boats and teach my younger cousins how to ski. And, never had jet skis, but like just a lot of outdoors, a lot of fishing, camping, swimming, skiing, lake life, like lake life all summer long. And then this really normal, consistent sort of school year. And I think some of those summers, I don't have an awesome memory for like this specific summer was like magic, but like throughout them, I think I felt like I could really be myself there, and it was fun to like host people, show people kind of like the best of what they could experience there. That is cool.
Yeah, that was good.
So your dad would come up on the weekends?
Yeah, that's right. He would commute into Rochester for his dental work Monday through Friday. And we would just kind of I had a lot of jobs I had to do, like a lot of lawn maintenance and, making sure that it was ready for guests when they would come. But man, it was a sweet place to grow up.
What would you fish for up there? Pike or something? What was the summer fish or the?
So a pike would be like a big deal. Like I didn't catch many pike, but certainly bass.
Was there bass fishing up there? Okay.
Yeah, trout in the deep waters, and then like perch, panfish and perch like around our house. Not many catfish. Yeah, like if you could land a bass, that was pretty sweet.
Yeah. Well, because here in Florida, of course, it's all bass fishing. I was just curious. I'm probably sure it's Nashville, same thing in the lakes. Yeah, I didn't know. And I remember going fishing a couple of times, but I didn't really go way upstate like you were, so I didn't know.
Right.
Most important thing your dad taught you?
Well, he taught me to be generous. Like if you've got something, hold it loosely and give it away freely, which is awesome. Challenging at times, but like I watched him do that. Yeah, that's my answer.
Charlie's dad was the creator of Napster, by the way.
That's right. He gave away so much music.
No, I'm just totally kidding on that. How about your mom? Most important thing mom taught you?
My mom was super empathetic. And I mean, that's probably like one of my strongest qualities.
Empathy,
yeah, just compassion for people. And walking in other people's shoes. Like I can't not do it. That's all from my mom.
I think that's another thing that makes your life less stressful also, because you tend to, if you can have that viewpoint a little bit, you tend to be less judgmental and therefore less stressed on your end, or you take things less personally, and
Absolutely.
It makes your life easier, I think.
Yeah. Makes you more grateful.
Yeah, for sure, man. I know you have a couple of kids. How long have you been married?
Married 20 years, just a month ago.
Dude, congratulations.
Thanks.
That's the biggest accomplishment.
Yeah, it is.
No, seriously.
I almost said for the greatest time in my life, we went and took a week trip down in Mexico like a month ago. And it was
just the two of you guys?
Just the two of us, yeah.
Awesome.
Be off, all inclusive, just no expectations. It was so sweet.
That's great, man. Congratulations. Glad you get to do that. Any bad habits?
I like bourbon and popcorn.
There you go. What kind of bourbon do you like?
I like them together. I don't buy like expensive bourbon. Like if something big comes along, I will once in a while, but like I'll just buy Four Roses. And yeah, I'm not like a sweets guy, but like I don't know. Popcorn is like one of my favorite things in the world, like movie popcorn.
Yeah.
So it's funny.
It's actually a healthy snack too.
Yeah, it's not bad if you don't like douse it in butter. I try not to. Growing up, like we're talking about my parents, so it makes me think. Growing up, like my dad, and still does, eats a bowl of ice cream every night before dinner.
Before dinner,
or before bed. I'm sorry.
Oh.
Dinner before bed, my dad would be there with a bowl of ice cream.
That's funny.
Which my kids do most nights, and then my mom would pop a bag of popcorn and eat it while watching TV before bed, which is kind of what I do now.
That's cool, man.
So, yeah.
Those nice traditions.
Yeah.
Do you have any hobbies or interests outside of music?
I'm kind of into poetry. Like I find a lot of life in like reflecting in a poem. I do like reading. I think I don't do a ton of reading, but I feel like if I can make space to read, that feels like a luxury. It kind of feels like self-care. Like my wife and I will talk a lot about like, what do you need this week to like be really focused and yourself at work? Like, kids are demanding, life's quick. So like, let's get what we need personally this week so that we can be really our best in these other areas. And so like, if I can read for an hour on Sunday afternoon or something, that just feels like, man, like I'm getting away with something.
I totally get it. Yeah, man.
Or like a hike in the woods or something like that. Like it feels like it's almost like cheating.
No, I get it. I totally get it's tough raising kids, man. It really is. And it was for me anyway. I'm on the 10-yard line now. So I've got one left and she's almost out the door, but it was tough. That was probably one of the toughest things I had to do.
Yeah, for sure.
Very demanding.
Yep.
And I was always like super like conscientious, and I always just felt that responsibility all the time. I take responsibility really serious. So it was always like there.
Yeah. Intense. Yeah.
Yeah. It's,
that's where the bourbon comes in.
Yeah. I hear you, man. I hear you. I like Blanton's. You ever have Blanton's?
Oh yeah. It's great.
That's amazing, man. I love that stuff.
Yeah.
It's now 12:20 where I'm salivating over Blanton's.
On Tuesday.
On Tuesday. Two more questions, man. Have you ever had a specific experience that either changed your life or altered the way you think about things?
Just a little light.
Just a light question, Charlie. We need the bourbon for this.
Yeah, right? I mean, I haven't had that experience where you're like, this one day, this one thing happened and my whole life changed after it. Like haven't been that kind of guy, but I feel like, it feels like the answer is sort of cheating, but like marriage over time, it's just like, it's the great mirror that shows you the things that you hate about yourself. It shows you a lot of things, but maybe the ones that are most transformative are the ones that need to change and make you a better man at the end of the day or the decade. So I feel like the fact that my wife had enough patience and strength, I was going to say grace, but it's more like patience and strength to push through those touring years with twin babies and then another one 8 years later at home when I was just bouncing in and out of town. She's got this like travel wanderlust thing where she was like, I would love to go to freaking Cincinnati tonight or whatever town I want to, and I'm sort of a homebody, so it was kind of like.
And you're on the road all the time, and she's stuck at home.
Yeah, there's weeks when I'm like, can we just freaking flip roles and like change it up for a little while?
Yeah.
But she toughed it out, and this transition of careers and figuring out what's next, and it was a tough few years financially, and just kind of like she started working, and she's awesome at what she does now, and so it's like we've lived more life together in the last 5 years than like the first 15. I guess I would say that.
That's nice.
And I've probably grown and changed more in the last 5 years than I did like in all those band years.
That's nice, man.
Yeah. So that transition that we talked about, like no more touring, what's next, freak out, eye on everything you come in contact with, like that season was one that I would point to as pretty massive.
You've used that word season a couple of times. It's interesting that, that's a very biblical sort of, it's interesting always that people tend to, you always relate to things and the things, the way you're comfortable and stuff. It's just, I always find that so interesting.
Yeah, sure.
Last question, man. And you kind of answered a little bit, but what's been the biggest change in your personality? I had here over the last 10 years, but let's call it last 5 for you. And how much of that was deliberate and how much was just a part of aging?
Yeah. Well, I think the transition we've been talking about post Jars into now was like there was a deliberateness to it, and I did try some stuff. I did try to like quit music for a minute and just get away and see like I feel like on the road I sort of fantasized about the day job, home for dinner, 9 to 5 thing.
Yeah.
So I've fantasized this enough in my mind. I know it's not what I think it is, but I'm just going to try it for a while. And
how did it work out? Like, not the job itself per se, but.
Yeah. Well, I learned a lot. I mean, I learned a lot of like practical skills, like communication kind of stuff. I was doing outreach to like influencers and leaders in different cities, and so I had to. It was just a different context than like band life.
Yeah.
And then coming back in here and building this room I'm in a building that Jars owns, so we kind of have this place where we can now work, which is rent free.
And everybody works there. Everybody could work there. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. It's killer place right next to Santa's Pub karaoke bar trailer.
Dude, I have a T-shirt from Santa's Pub. Funny enough, yeah, I do.
Like my window, like right now, I'm looking at Santa's Pub.
That is so cool.
Yeah. So, but you were asking a deeper question than that. What was the original question again?
The original question was, what was the biggest change in your personality been, and has it been deliberate change or naturally through aging?
Yeah. I think finding the confidence to show up by myself in my studio and still believe that like something great's going to happen today. I've got a ton of experience. It's just like that self-confidence piece that still on certain days can just feel so far away. And I think some of that's my personality type. Some of that's that I really leaned on the band for that many years. And so it's still like it's still a muscle I'm working on, but to like believe that I can get a co-write with a pretty cool artist or writer and like bring something great to it, and take it somewhere really cool, and not to anticipate that might not happen. You know, like it's happened enough times now to go like, trust the process day by day, show up and be attentive, like show up really ready to listen, really ready to be open, ready to explore creatively, melodically, and cool things always happen when I can access that mind.
Man, and as soon as you get your first bass hit, that'll be like the best thing for you. That's all. You know, you just got to get a man on bass, and you will, for sure.
Yeah,
I believe in you, man. I know you'll do it.
Thank you.
Hey, let's talk about Hollow Hum. Where can people find you? Where can people find Hollow Hum? And I can't thank you enough for you're a real nice guy. Real nice getting to know you, and I appreciate you being so open and honest.
It's been fun. Yeah, hollowhum.com is, that's got like SoundCloud links and Spotify links and a poem that I really like. It's kind of random. I just like curated a bunch of stuff that I feel like all points to like who I am. I think it says composer, collaborator, producer. Like, I feel like that collaborator word is like, 1/3 of what I do or what I'm good at. And then on all the socials, it's just Hollow Hum. It should pop up if people look for it.
Awesome.
And then Birds of Norway is kind of the same. Like, if you search Spotify for Birds of Norway, there's only 2 singles up right now, but I've got like 10 or 11 more I've been brewing on this past winter.
Yeah, but I would check. Everybody, go check out Birds of Norway. It's really nice stuff. It's almost like I don't want to use the word. It's not electronic music. It's more like it's almost. It's just like mellows. It's very chilled stuff to listen to, man.
I call it solo piano for reflection.
That's perfect. It's solo piano.
Kind of background music, but like if you're sipping coffee or you're like just clearing your mind and need some like a soundtrack for it, it's sort of ambient piano.
It's too involved to be background music because you're going to think about it. To be honest with you, it's not. But yeah, it's just go listen to it. If you want to listen to something nice and relaxing, go find Birds of Norway and go to hollowhum.com and check out all of Charlie Lowell's stuff. Send him money and pay attention. Any final words of wisdom, man?
I just appreciate your conversation and the work that you put in ahead of time to make it dynamic, and know enough about me to like bring out interesting things.
Well, thank you, man. Thanks for being a great person to interview. I appreciate your time. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this interview as much as I did. Thanks again to Charlie Lowell for spending time with us. I really appreciate it. Go to everyonelovesguitar.com and sign up to get notified about future episodes along with early product announcements and discounts. And remember that happiness is a choice. So be nice, go play a guitar, and most important, have fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody. I'm out. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.